Thanks, Luís, for joining me today for this interview. We will talk about sustainability. And Luís is a specialized academic and engineer, bridging the gap between software engineering and environmental sustainability. He's a software engineer with a master and a PhD in University of Porto. His thesis specifically focused on tools and techniques for energy-efficient mobile application development. And my first question is, uh, how did you start measuring energy efficiency for mobile applications? And you are now looking into sustainable software engineering and green AI.
First of all, thanks, Jose, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here talking with you about such an interesting topic, so close to my heart.
Thank you.
So, yeah, getting back to your question, it all started during my PhD. I was working on a totally different topic related to data science and AI for specific domains like education, healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And in all these projects, at some point, the main limitation was the energy resources or the energy consumption of the devices where we were running the software.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to deploy a model in a mobile application,
Mm-hmm.
and the mobile application couldn't really
Anyways.
use the, the, the capacity of the model just because the battery would run out in a few hours.
I
Of
see.
course, it would be useless for users and customers to have such an application. They would immediately uninstall it from their devices. So that made me think that, okay, we need to do something to improve the energy efficiency of the models and the applications that we're building. And I had to look around and study a lot and see what is out there to help developers build energy efficient code. And I couldn't find a lot of
Anything.
resources.
Yeah, okay.
So that's when I realized that maybe my PhD should be on something else. And that's when we immediately detoured the main target, the main direction of the PhD towards energy efficient mobile applications. So that's how it all started. And yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm
that's a
still
big pivot.
working on the topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And that's interesting because you have experience both in the private sector. You worked in some Portuguese organizations after your studies. You also have experience in the academia.
Mhm.
In fact, over the last 6 years, you were a researcher and assistant professor in TU Delft. So I think you are in the right spot to guide us today through a discussion about how do energy consumption and efficiency affect software development, and more importantly, how should it affect the software development? And that's the focus of our interview today. At this right time, you are also starting a new adventure. It's called Greenseal. Can you tell us what Greenseal is?
Yeah, so as you said, I have quite some academic experience, but I also had some technical experience. And somehow these two worlds have difficulties communicating with each other sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And in this space, we're doing a lot of great stuff in the academic side. So there's a lot of research on how to build energy efficient software, energy efficient software companies. Um, and I think in the past 6 years at U Delft, we actually did some great things in that direction. And there's also quite a few companies that are actually interested in becoming more sustainable in delivering software products
Mm-hmm.
that are aligning with these values,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow they miss the guidelines, the actual scientific facts to
Mm-hmm.
do
Oh,
so.
yeah.
And Green Seal um, is born in the bridge between these two worlds.
Okay.
So how to bring the state of the art in energy efficient code
Yeah.
to the software development pipelines of companies.
Okay.
Because um, although companies are willing to become more sustainable, some of them, not all of them, of
Hmm.
course, the roadmap to do so is not really clear, and easily we fall under the trap of claiming that we are sustainable just on the outside. We create a sustainability report, and we use carbon credits to offset our carbon
I see.
emissions and all these sort of things. But we're honestly trying to do something better for our environment. But at the same time, we're not really doing the best we can, and we're not really building products that are actually sustainable.
Yeah. And actually, I find that there is a major theme, I would call it, in your research, that is energy is often ignored in software design. Is this the case? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, so energy is not the first class citizen in software
No,
development.
it's not.
And I think we, even people that actually are passionate about the topic, they will recognize this. It's not the main thing when they're developing software. The main thing is uh, a feature, functional requirements, right?
Yep.
That is the first thing that you want, just to deliver something to the user and see how the user responds to it. Then you also become more concerned about things like performance, technical debt, all these other quality aspects of your software. But only in the end, you actually start thinking, okay, what is the energy consumption of
Yeah.
my software product? And at the same time, this is such a complicated topic because you cannot just look at energy in isolation. You cannot just build the most energy efficient software product and ignore all the other important requirements, right?
Yeah.
So you also need um, to look at this as a trade-off analysis on,
That's the question.
okay, this is what we are, the feature that we have. Are we doing it in the most energy efficient way?
Yeah.
So it's not only about the total energy consumption of our software, but also making sure that if there is this energy consumption, it's because we need it and
Hmm.
not because we're wasting it. And this kind of realization, this kind of analysis is what makes it so difficult.
I
And
see.
it's not a priority for software development teams because it's also a lot of work.
Yeah. I wanted precisely to arrive on that. How can we convince a CTO to suddenly invest in green software when we know that energy costs are far lower than software development costs?
Yeah, so that's the main question that we're doing right now. How to convince decision makers to actually pull the trigger and
Hmm.
make a difference. And 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 this question is more complicated than it sounds because we have a lot of developers and practitioners that are really interested in building energy efficient software,
Yeah.
but they are actually approaching academics. Okay, well, what can we do? Can you give us some guidelines, some recipes that we can follow?
Hmm.
So there is interest on that. But when in their daily work, they cannot really just start working on these ideas because again, it costs money to the company,
Yep.
and they also the company is paying them a salary to bring value to the company that the company can capitalize somehow. So, and then we have the other problem, which is when we go to CTOs, they are not, their vision is not at the low level of the software. So their vision is at the high level, at the whole is a holistic overview of the whole company. And of course, software it's only one part of it, and you have a lot more um, areas in the company where you also are consuming and emitting, consuming energy and emitting carbon. So going to the software itself um, becomes a bit more difficult. And at the same time, speaking about energy of software or about um, carbon emissions doesn't really speak to their priorities. Even if they really care about the environment and they really
Mm.
care about becoming a more sustainable company, they have a lot of pressure from different KPIs,
Yeah.
including costs. And that's where we're trying to get the attention of C-level people by showing that, hey, we can become more sustainable by reducing costs. And let's focus on the cost reduction that actually leads to more sustainability.
Mm.
And there you can count on things like reducing the costs with your cloud providers.
Yep.
If you require less computation resources to build your software, to operate your software, then you're saving costs, but you're also reducing your energy and carbon footprint. Um, Other things like if you're building energy efficient code, your users will be more satisfied. Your users will not remove the app from their mobile phones because they have the feeling that you're spending too much battery.
Mm.
So if you're at the same time that you're reducing the energy footprint, you're also bringing other types of values to users or to your investors, then we can bring energy into the landscape. This is both an interesting challenge because how we
Mhm.
can sell green software to the industry, but also a main limitation because energy won't be the first class citizen, it's just a, a byproduct of something else.
Okay, I see. That leads me to another question then. So I can imagine that the user of a mobile application might be hypersensitive to energy efficiency because a less efficient application will definitely drain the battery faster. But the user of a laptop, of a day-to-day work that is always plugged into the wall, is a user like that willing to sacrifice features or performance in favor of sustainability and energy efficiency? Or is there any science, any data already available on
Yeah, that's a very good point. And again, it depends, right? As in everything around uh, in sustainability,
that?
there's never a silver bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to know your customer and how your customer runs your software. So the first thing, and this is a guideline that I like a lot, is making sure that your users understand the energy consumption of your software, of your features.
Mm.
And by this, I mean uh, maybe a user doesn't care about spending a lot of energy in one feature because it's
It's
still
important.
bringing a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, the user doesn't really care, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But at least the user makes a deliberate action to use that feature, knowing that it's spending that much energy. At the same time, if the same user or a different user at some point doesn't want to spend too much energy, um, they will be in control and they will be able to
Mm-hmm.
autonomously say, no, I want to save energy. So that's one thing. Um, the other thing is a lot of times um, it's not only your computer that is running something. There's a lot of cloud services running.
Yeah.
So your software is running something in your computer, but there's a bigger backend in the cloud doing a lot more work and
Yeah.
processing. without the perception of users, right? And this is where we think it can be problematic, and there's a lot of work to be done in terms of reducing costs. For example, when you're interacting with ChatGPT, for the user, you have no idea what is the energy consumption or the environmental footprint of your interactions with that.
Yeah.
Which is the beauty of it, because you're interacting with such a massive system just using your smartphone or your desktop computer, and you immediately get results, and it's very useful.
Oh yeah.
I use it, so I'm not blaming who does that. I also use it. But this lack of transparency is the problem, because
Yeah.
then the massive carbon footprint that has behind the curtains,
You don't see
it
it.
is problematic, and it is growing, and it is expected to grow. So
Yeah.
just to give a major figure, the expectation is that by 2030, the energy consumption and then the resource usage from all the data centers in the world will double. So, and it is compared with today, not with yesterday. Compared with today, in 4 years, we will require twice as much energy to run our software. So you would expect that the hardware is becoming more energy efficient, the data centers are becoming more energy efficient, so we can run whatever software we want without
Mm.
worrying about the energy consumption worldwide.
Wow.
But that's not the case. So the software will keep becoming more and more complex, even though the hardware is becoming more and more efficient. And even with these two main forces
Yeah.
playing around, will be doubling the energy consumption.
Wow. That's astonishing. And I was also wondering, what about the data transportation? So, as a user, when we use a feature, we see the value in it. So we have the output right on the spot, extremely optimized. So I save tons of time using things like ChatGPT, and I have no idea what is happening to the world behind the scenes. But most likely, I don't have a data center running the ChatGPT model close to my place. And I wonder if the data transportation is also another source of concern for that.
It is, and this is also something that we see that sometimes developers overlook, because there's no incentive in a way to look into these things. But developing your software in a way that it will always look for the nearest content provider possible.
Yeah,
Uh, it's also a way of becoming more sustainable, minimizing data transactions, compressing the data that needs to be transacted over the network. All these sort of things, using local cache, for example,
yeah,
to when you're, I don't know, when you're listening to Spotify, you don't need to always be downloading the songs
exactly.
that you like, right? You can just use a bigger cache.
Yeah,
Um,
good idea.
Playing things offline, and the same for many other types of content. And again, the same problem happens with these new LLMs like ChatGPT, where the data is being moved from all types of sources and all types of places in the whole world.
I see.
And we are trying to centralize and collect all these data to make sure that we can train the biggest and largest and best LLM model.
I see.
So data is being transacted everywhere. Um,
Well, I'm trying to reply the question in my head. If I had the chance of having a new feature in Netflix that allows me to reduce the quality of the stream, to save CO2, to save energy, if I would do it. Well, I want to say yes, of course, because we are doing this interview, but honestly, I'm not sure.
yeah, that's a very good point. I want to say two things about that. I hope I don't forget the second one
I
while answering
remind
the first one. Um, so the first one is it, this is something that I'm trying to fight against, but sometimes I also do it, which is blaming the users, right? One thing is giving users control, but not giving users the responsibility. So you as a user, you should not be the one feeling ashamed of wanting to
Yeah.
view a nice movie with high quality. Of course, we all want that. It's th- you're trading off quality for energy, and maybe your impact as a user is so minimal that why are you doing it to yourself, right? So that's one thing. So um, we want the software to be an enabler of green software, but not as something to feel people limited or overwhelmed
Yeah, I see.
about becoming more sustainable. So yeah, the best thing is that if you enjoy watching a movie in high quality, I think it's a fair thing to do. At the same time, it's important that whatever video streaming platform you use, it is able to provide you the highest video quality at the minimum energy cost.
Yeah.
And this means that if your screen is full HD, you don't need 4K, for example.
Yes.
If you're um, if you use the right codec or the right compression of the video, maybe you can still have high quality while reducing costs. Um, you don't need to preload all the trailers of all the different movies that you have in your profile. Maybe this can be done after the user clicks on something, for example. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of other ways of making sure that you don't use all the energy.
I
So
see.
that was one thing. Um, the second thing, I knew I was going to forget the second one.
No, let's do the following. If this comes back to mind, let's go back into this topic because
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I think you already hinted many times on AI, ChatGPT, Gen AI. Let's delve into it a bit. So, is Gen AI uh, energy intensive? I mean, is the training energy intensive, or is the usage energy intensive? Is there a difference? Is it true that if I train it once, then it's super efficient to use and I barely have to worry? How does it work?
Yeah, so first of all, Gen AI is energy intensive by default unless you do something to make it more optimized. So
Mm-hmm.
then of course you have Gen AI at large scales and Gen AI at small cases, small scales like Edge AI, and where you just run this Gen AI in small devices. Um, so um, training these models is super energy demanding, also super hardware demanding. You need tons of the latest version of GPUs to run um, the most common LLMs, which are a nice example of Gen AI. And this problem is even bigger if we talk about video generation, image generation. That's even bigger.
Mm.
So training these models are intensive, not only because training a single time is just requires a lot of computing, but also because it's a very experimental process. So before you are able to design the whole training pipeline of a model like ChatGPT, you need to try a lot of different things, a lot of different executions before you define, okay, this is what we have to do to train this
There's a
model.
huge amount of waste.
So you keep retraining several times, thousands of times. But um, uh, recently, with the massive adoption of these models, the training itself is not the biggest problem because compared to the number of inferences that we do to these models, especially the ones that are in production, that are publicly available, then we don't even know the proportion, but we know for sure that using the
Okay.
models are the main source of carbon footprint nowadays.
See.
Um, Before ChatGPT, the proportion would be 50-50. Like we spend 50% of the resources on training and then we use it, and
Yeah.
the other 50% goes to just inference. And then we retrain a new model. And so it was a shorter life cycle in a way. Nowadays, we are able to say, okay, training is not the biggest problem, but not because inference got better. It's just
No.
because we
Yes.
use them a lot more. Just
Yes. I
yeah.
understand.
And there's just a few numbers. It's difficult to give you accurate numbers because all these things are first not really transparent, and second, it's super difficult to be transparent and provide reliable data. But with the older versions of ChatGPT 3.5, um, the carbon emissions were equivalent of training the model, just training,
Training.
were
Okay.
equivalent
Okay.
to running 1,000 cars for 1,000 kilometers. Like
Wow.
just training. Now imagine the total carbon footprint after using them. And we also know that we don't know the numbers for ChatGPT 4.
Mhm.
We also don't know for 5. But we know that from ChatGPT 3 to 4, the number of parameters and complexity of this model increased
Increase.
by hundreds of times
Okay.
or even more. So it's not difficult to imagine that the carbon footprint is
Mm.
bigger by a large number.
Okay. And is there any specific LLM, any specific trained model that you would advocate for, that they have better practices, they really focus on the efficiency
Yeah,
or
so
really?
yeah, there are a few initiatives. So none of them are like let's say sustainable per se, but there are some initiatives where they honestly try to follow more sustainable practices, and they are
Mhm.
trying to show us the way to a more sustainable Gen AI. Um, so there is one initiative where the idea is just to run the same models in uh, uh, data centers that run on renewable energy, where the hardware is not disposed every year. That they try to run things on older hardware so that you don't need just to
Mhm.
buy always the latest technologies. And there are initiatives like GreenPT, for example. They're doing a lot of work in this space. And there's also Mistral AI.
Okay.
And what they're doing is simply reporting the best way they can. Uh, and this is already good because it
Yeah.
gives us baselines. Okay, this is what we're able to do today. Tomorrow, if we do something different, we can look back and say, okay, this was better or worse, and we can
Mm.
improve from there.
Yeah.
If we have no data, no transparency,
You cannot benchmark.
then anything's possible, right?
Exactly.
And it becomes even more difficult to become sustainable.
Okay. On the same line, is there any advice that you would give to organizations who are using Gen AI already in their day-to-day operations? And I think all of them are. Are there any practices that, I don't know, employees, engineers, developers, designers, business people, they can really start adopting to reduce the footprint of
Yeah.
their work?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll never say that you should not take the most out of these technologies. I think it's important that
Yeah.
we learn how to use them, that we take the most out of it because it's an amazing technology. Yeah? I'm
Yeah.
not against
Yeah, absolutely.
innovation. Then there are a few tools. that help you um, monitor the carbon footprint of your interaction with, for
Okay.
example, ChatGPT. It's just an estimation, but even an estimation, it's better than nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So it gives you some sense of how much you have consumed, and this is uh, one thing to have in mind. The other thing would be talking about it. Just the fact that I don't know, uh, you're going for a coffee with your coworkers and you share some of your thoughts, some of the techniques that or strategies that you've used to reduce the usage of these technologies. And and there are two ways of this of looking at this problem, right? One thing is when you use that LLM to become more productive, and the other is when you use the LLM inside your product, right?
Yeah, of course.
So there are two sides of this problem, and I think the most problematic at the moment is when you integrate it with your product, because then it means that you lose control on how you interact with the LLM. It will be your software interacting with it based on inputs from your users. So a lot of things can happen. A lot of different throughput will happen because maybe you have a thousand users per day, maybe you have a million users per day, and if all of them will generate a prompt to a model that
Yeah.
will uh, generate outputs, you lose control on how many tokens and how much energy it will be spending. And there you have other decisions like, do you need all the tokens to be fed to this LLM?
Mm.
How can you compress the prompt that you're sending? Instead of sending 100 tokens, maybe you can send the same input with just 20 tokens, for example.
Okay.
Are you using the right model? Do you really need ChatGPT 5 Max Pro something? Like maybe
I
you
see.
can do the same with
Okay.
the mini version.
Yeah.
So all these things are important. But the main thing is that this becomes part of the conversation. I think that would be my very first
Nice.
advice is like bring this to the conversation and then bring it to the development pipeline. And this is so there are many layers on
Yeah.
how to get there.
Wow. Very interesting dots. I have many questions in my head. I cannot ask you all of them, of course. But now I think scrolling through LinkedIn from time to time, I get the feeling that companies are now in a moment where they are, okay, they are already ahead of the cloud technology. They finally got to understand it and they are doing amazing things with that. They are getting proficient with AI. That was somehow aspirational 1 year ago, I would say, in Europe. Now all of them use it. Maybe
Yeah,
the massive LLMs are helping a lot to improve the operations. In the corridors, we can hear some people talking about quantum as the next big thing coming. And when it comes to green and sustainability and green AI, how can this become preeminent in our industries? Because it seems very important from the numbers you are laying down. How come that we will adapt to it?
yeah. That's uh, that's a difficult one. So um,
It's imposed, basically.
yeah. So speaking of being imposed, I mean, I get many times that question on should this be regulated, and um, it's uh, I don't like the idea of regulating sustainability just because I find it dangerous in a way that the big players will be able to comply. They will just throw money at the problem, and they will just
Yeah.
follow whatever checkbox need to be followed.
Yeah.
And the smaller players will just won't have the same capacity, and
Yeah.
this will be just another obstacle
Very
to
penalizing.
small players to go up the elevator. And we don't want that to happen. We want things to be dynamic. At the same time, we want to make sure that companies have the right incentives to become more sustainable. And how these incentives will appear, it's not so clear, because there won't be a single incentive that will make the difference. Um, I think that consumers are becoming more critical about the products they have, and they will, of course, start making questions about the sustainability. I think this is something that will happen in the long term. I don't see it happening in the short term, because it will require people to have certain level of literacy about software that we don't have nowadays.
Mhm.
But just the fact that now we have some numbers, that now we're having this conversation, I think that will mm, bring something called green procurement, where you make sure that whoever are your software providers,
Yeah.
they follow the same principles of sustainability that you do.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Now, indeed, how to bring a race towards sustainability like we had towards quantum, that was, I mean, but quantum was also not bringing clear value in the
Yeah.
short term, but still companies were racing towards becoming leaders in quantum computing. Um, and I'd love to see the same happening in terms of sustainability. But it's I think it will require a lot of effort in terms of communication, in terms of showing that if you lead sustainability, you lead the IT sector as well. You're that by becoming, for example, um, if ChatGPT says, or no, not ChatGPT, if there's a company that does the same thing as OpenAI, but they say we're living on sustainability, they don't need to say we're sustainable, because that would be a lie, but we're living on
Sustainability.
sustainability, we're living on the race to become sustainable. Would people or would that company be immediately getting more investors, more money? Would that immediately
Yeah.
get them more customers? um, I don't think so. I think that you'd be able to find a niche to become a viable company. That you'll be able to have a small portion of users and investors that really care about it, but the majority won't really see that company as a
Mm.
stellar. So how to change that? I don't know, but I want to find out. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I will allow myself to share an opinion, and I'm a bit skeptical myself, but over the last years, I see sustainability, not specifically in software, in other industries,
Mhm.
becoming a sort of a new premium. People is willing to pay more expensive for an electric car, not because they will save money with the fuel, because the energy and the cost of the car, and I don't know what. It's arguable what is the model that actually
Mhm.
is better than a Renault Clio over 10 years.
Got it.
But people is willing to pay more for having solar panels on their roofs. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. By all means, they should.
Yeah,
But it's
there's a
difficult to
status.
find an economic basis to say, no, this will pay off quickly. It won't pay off quickly. But people still go for the sustainable. They are willing to pay more. People are willing to pay more for green electricity in their bill.
Mhm.
And I think with all of this added value of sustainability, the prices are going up and it's becoming sort of a premium market.
Yeah.
So in the idea that you lay down of having a green LLM sort of provider, I would consider that maybe if it markets it correctly, people would be likely willing to pay
Yeah.
even more. I don't know. I'm
Well, no,
speculating, and depends on the culture and tons of things.
yeah, well, it will definitely depend on a lot of factors, but
Yeah.
I think you have a point. So it is a luxury item. It's something that only wealthy organizations that are really comfortable, they would be able to.
Yeah.
But this would happen because even though they don't know the return of investment of becoming sustainable, they
Yeah.
don't mind having that because they have enough um,
Yeah.
margin to accommodate that risk.
Yeah.
Um, but for companies that are very competitive and they really need to always do all the math to make sure that they bring value to customers that will
Yeah.
have return of investment,
Yes.
then the story might be a bit trickier.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
question
Yeah.
is,
Totally. I see.
how um, can this luxury item immediately bring value and visible value that you can know in advance that, okay, if I do this, users will perceive me as a higher
Effectively.
quality product and I can charge more for that.
Yeah. I don't know that answer. I was thinking uh, that there is a new market that has been growing since some years now. That is the sustainable clothing. I have myself a couple of items from brands like Patagonia. And yeah, maybe I try to convince myself and others that I pay this extra because I care. But honestly, I suspect that the message is I'm paying the extra more than the I care. So having something and we are very proud of the brand. So we want to share the brand. It's not that we care in silence. We want to show that we care.
Yeah.
So the green, I don't want to use green seal, but the green label has also this power of showing off that you
Hmm.
care, and then by transition you are a better person,
Yeah.
most likely.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Then you are willing to pay to show that you're a better person at
Yeah.
the end.
Which doesn't sound like being a good person.
No.
At the same time, we need that
Yeah.
because that's the way of inspiring other people to do so.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing as people that give money to a cause in silence, or people that give money to a cause and they spread the word about it.
Exactly.
And in the past, I was very against people
Spreading.
showing off because it really felt shallow and that the intentions were not in the right place.
Exactly.
But after talking to a friend about this, he was like, no, I actually want these people that more than the money, they have a voice, a platform that can inspire others to do so. So I don't care how much money they give, even if they don't give money.
Yeah.
Their main action is inspiring others to do so.
Yep. It's crazy.
And here I think it's the same thing. Okay, you you're you feel good about saying I do this. You feel like
Yeah.
people will appreciate you more, and you really feel like, oh, you made it in
Interesting.
life, right? Um, but at the same time, you're doing something so much better, which is inspiring others to do the same and saying, if I did this, you could also do that and join the club.
Yeah.
So I think it's important.
Interesting. This unfolded in a very interesting direction. Then questions like, why is UNICEF paying millions to Barcelona to have their logo in their jerseys? Is because it inspires others. Yeah, very good. So I have one last question for you, Luis. That is about Green Seal. So what's next for you?
Yeah, so as I said, greenseal is appearing in this big gap between academia and industry. Um, and what's next is exactly going from smaller bridge that only a few people can cross it to a bigger, strong bridge that everyone can cross. And again, talking about inspiration, like being able to go from the very few customers that we have that really care about this,
Mhm.
but actually helping these customers go beyond these values that they share with Greenseal towards something that will make others look at these customers as this is the way
Yeah.
to go. We want to be like that. We also want to be a
Okay.
company that has energy efficient software development processes where developers actually can improve the energy efficiency of their code and can actually prove that they did so, and they can actually test that in their applications. The developers, when they reduce the resource usage of their pipelines,
Mhm.
they can actually see the impact that they were able to make
Yeah.
in the sustainability of the company.
Okay.
So all this monitoring, it's difficult to do. And this is where Greenseal wants to be showing up. So this is where we want to help companies, because we know that if this is there, then people have the incentives to contribute to an energy efficient software organization.
Okay. Wow, that's ambitious. Thanks, Luis. So I suggest everyone to have a look on Luis' work. He has plenty of articles for you to have fun. Have a look in his GitHub, luiscruz.github.io. I think you have the green sustainability
Yeah.
software slides there, right?
Yes. So
Very good.
as part of my journey, I also created a course at the Delft University of Technology where
Mm.
computer science students have uh, training on how to build energy efficient code, how to analyze energy efficiency at the software business level. So all the slides are available,
Cool.
public, open source. They're more than welcome to give feedback as well.
Yeah, very good.
And also check Greenseal's website, greenseal.dev. Feel free to reach out.
So thank you, Luis. And that's
Thank
it.
you, Jose, once again.